Welcome everyone to the Gavel. I'm Terry Ikumi. Now all week, the House of Representatives Committee on Finance held meetings with ministries, departments and agencies on the medium-term expenditure framework MTEF 2023 to 2025. Some things were common with almost all the government agencies as observed by the committee. The revenue generation was low, the remittances to the federal government account was abysmal, and the financial records of the agencies were untidy. Some of them were eventually placed on status inquiry by the lawmakers for a deeper look into their books. Now, the Minister of Finance and the Director General of the Nigeria Customs Service were among those who appeared before the committee. Take a listen.
The Minister of Finance was the first to appear before the House Committee of Finance on Monday. She informed lawmakers that the federal government is projecting a total revenue of 8.46 trillion naira, out of which 1.9 trillion naira is expected to come from oil-related sources, while the remaining balance is to come from non-oil sources.
The crude oil price, which was appropriated at $73 per barrel for 2022, has improved significantly to $103.6 per barrel. Exchange rate, which was appropriated at 410 naira 15 kobo to the US dollar, is now slightly up to 415.19 to the US dollar. Inflation, which we projected to be at an average of 13%, is now up to 17.71%. And this is as at July. It has, from all indications, it's still continuing to climb up.
The committee was, however, not happy with the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation for failing to provide the details of monies paid by the various ministries, departments and agencies into the Federation account.
Mr. Chairman, you and I know we are on one committee with you. We docked the Accountant General. No wonder he's in trouble. You know, you were chairman. He couldn't sufficiently answer some of our interrogations. Here we have a country that is struggling with debt. Here we have an institution, well-professionals, well-educated people in the Accountant General Office, but yet they are not able to track our revenue.
I'm not going to send any agency to you to go and reconcile. You should send to us what you have on record. What do you have on record? That's what we need. Do you understand? If you send to us what you have on record, then we can use it to do our own job. They are not even supposed to know that I have the records from you.
The federal government is pegging the crude oil price at $70 per barrel at the exchange rate of 435.57 naira per dollar, while real gross domestic product GDP growth is projected at 3.7%, while inflation is put at 17 to 16%. On the second day, the room was packed full with officials of various revenue-generating agencies who were there to account for their remittances to the Federation account, as well as their projections for 2023. It quickly turned into a heated debate as the conversation of remittances began.
I will not come here to come and lie on what I did not do.
Please give us the evidence. We are speaking to documents here, sir. We are speaking to documents. We are not here to be, we are not sentimental.
We are speaking to documents.
Hold on.
Chairman, sir.
Hold on, DG, hold on.
Because I'm on camera.
Some agencies were eventually turned back to rectify their accounts with the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation.
I can't understand why in this age and era, with professionals like you, our operations will still be limited to manual. You do manual operation, you issue receipt manually. The feeling, what we get from those things is the office is possibly trying to cut corners. So you've created windows to cut corners, because when you do things manual, you know what windows you're creating, you know. So we must take this back home. It is not acceptable, not in this age and era, for you to be doing things manually. Everywhere you go to, people are going online. In fact, even the remittances we're talking about, they've been done online. In the past, people take cash and what have you to the bank. But now, the banks have caused revolution.
Members of the committee frowned at what they describe as discrepancies in the remittances of some of the revenue-generating agencies.
2021, IGR 2.4 billion, IGR 13 million, operating expenses 2.46 billion. I mean, we must have details of the expenses, the expenditure. You received 2.4, you expended everything, we must see the details.
And more.
Nigerians must see these details.
And more.
We must see these details.
He expended more.
We must see these details.
He expended more.
Go down. The same 2021, capital grants, 5.7. Capital expenditure, 6.9. We must see the details.
On day 3 of the hearing on the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework 2023 to 2025, organized by the House of Representatives Committee on Finance, the document submitted by the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Authority was rejected by the committee.
I'm under the impression that you are a wholly funded agency, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you are expected to do 100% remittance, but what I've seen in your presentation, you're still doing 25% remittances. That's not in line with the provision of the Finance Act 2021. Now, go back home, do a proper report, submit to the House latest by, today is what? Today is Wednesday. Latest by Friday, and we'll take you next week, Tuesday. We already have enough for Monday. Yeah, so we'll take you next week, Tuesday.
Members of the committee questioned the extra budgetary spendings of the Nigerian Export Promotion Council and the National Office for the Technology Acquisition and Promotion.
Where you are expected to remit 100%, you remitted 25%. We will be interested. What gave you the authority to spend 75% of the revenue that you generated?
Right from the establishment of NOTAP, the Act gives us the responsibility to raise fund and utilize the fund for the running affairs of NOTAP.
What we generate for 2021
yeah,
is 22 million, sir. 22.5 million. 22.5 million, sir.
What of this 3.5 billion?
No, it's from the 0.5% port development.
It's IGR to you. It's revenue.
Concerned that the actions of these agencies negatively affect the country's revenues, the agencies were placed on status inquiry for a deeper look into their books. On Thursday, while appearing before the committee, the Director General of the Nigeria Customs Service, Hamid Ali, questioned the figures for the daily consumption of premium motor spirit, also known as PMS. According to him, if the NNPC puts daily consumption of PMS at 60 million litres, why does it allow 98% litres to be lifted daily from the depots? The Customs DG also dismissed claims that smuggling of PMS contributes to huge amounts being paid for subsidy.
The issue is not the smuggling of petroleum. I have always argued this with NNPC. If we are consuming 60 million litres per day by their own computation, why in the world will you allow a liftment of petroleum product of 98 million million litres per day? That computation to me is not even anything to believe, because scientifically you cannot tell me that if I fill my tank today, tomorrow I'll fill the same tank with the same quantity of fuel. And if I'm running a petrol station today, if I go to Mina Depot and lift petrol, and I'm taking it to Kaduna, I may reach Kaduna in the evening, offload that petrol in that evening. There's no way I could have sold that petrol for you to account that that has been expended. So how do we get to 60 million every day? If you say this petrol is smuggled, if you release 98 million litres, and then in actual you have released 98 million litres, and then we use 60 million litres, the balance will be 38 million liters. How many trucks will carry 38 million liters? Every day, that's almost 500. Which road are they following? Where are they carrying this thing to?
All right, so following the observations and concerns of the House Committee on Finance after engaging the MDAs, I sat with the Deputy Chairman of the committee, Abdullahi Saidu, to get his thoughts on what had transpired all week.
It's actually a constitutional responsibility, the processing of MTEF before the presentation of the national budget. I think we've established the culture of having the national budget circle between the month of January and December. So what we're doing now is in line with actualizing that culture. We are supposed to be on recess, but given the importance of this exercise, we, as a committee, we called it off, and fortunately, we have good members of the committee turning up because to underscore the importance of the exercise. Now, we're in the third day of the exercise, and I think so far so good. It has been with some challenges, of course, from MDS in terms of getting the proper records in terms of remittances. I think the biggest challenge that I've observed so far is in the fact that most agencies are not even in tune with happenings around the country. You pass laws in the assembly, you get the president to assent to them, and getting it to the various MDAs has been a bit of a challenge because you take on agencies that are not even aware of existence of certain laws. So it's actually impeding their performance in terms of revenue generation. Over the years, in the last 3 years or so, we've come up with the culture of amending our finance laws since the year 2019. We did it in 2019, we did in 2020, we did in 2021. And all these amendments are tilted towards ensuring that we show up our revenue generation base. It's a fact that the country has huge potentials, and in fact, even the first day of this interactive session, I challenged the Ministry of Finance that we should do a comparative analysis of what is obtainable in other climes in terms of their revenue performances, so that we will be able to put our people on their toes to enhance their performances. A country like South Africa, for instance, but in the year 2020, I think they did over 30 trillion in terms of their revenue generation. So, yeah, FIRS is doing a lot. And the last year, we had a record of 6.4 trillion naira, which is a good one. But when you look at it in terms of what is obtainable in other climes, especially in Africa, you realize that we still have a very long way to go. And for us to get to where we want to get to, we need to get these agencies to be on top of their game to ensure that they do the right thing, to ensure that they even understand their mandates in terms of their responsibility, revenue generation responsibility to the federation and, of course, to the federal government. So I think that's exactly what we've set out to do as a committee. We're trying to put these agencies on their toes so that they understand that the country is in dire need of this revenue. The culture of going the way of borrowing, easy way of going the way of borrowing, I think we must halt it. For a developing economy, it's only natural that we look, there's no such country in the world that does not borrow. But if we must borrow, we must ensure that we optimize our domestic potentials in terms of revenue generation. So exactly what we have set out to do as a committee. It has come with some challenges, like I said, but as a committee, we're also here to work with the agencies to ensure that we overcome those challenges.
Now, one of those challenges would be that some of these agencies don't even know that they're revenue generating agencies. And for those who even generate this revenue, they go ahead and spend from it without appropriation. They have no understanding of what it is to generate revenue and expend it. So it's a concern, isn't it?
It's a major concern because expenditure outside the appropriation, outside the budget, I think is something that is a breach of the Constitution. And that's exactly what we're bringing to glare to the agencies, that they have a constitutional responsibility to be responsible to the Federation. Now, we have some agencies of the government that we have put to task, especially the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation and the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, that they need to sensitize these agencies in terms of what their responsibilities are. As you rightly mentioned, some of them are not even aware that they're supposed to be remitting revenue to the Federation account, and in some instances to the CRF, the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Now, I think we're getting there gradually. We're getting them to appreciate what their responsibilities are.
Welcome back to the Gavel. Let's return to the conversation with the Deputy Chairman of the House Committee on Finance, Abdullahi Saidu, on observations of the committee after a week-long interaction with MDAs on the MTEF 2023 to 2025. How closely does the National Assembly work with these agencies to set targets for revenues? I know that a couple of committees, maybe just specific committees like the Nigeria Customs Service, the Committee on Customs sets targets, sits with them to help them set targets for their revenue generation. But it would seem that the smaller agencies and parastatals do not, well, the National Assembly does not work closely with them to set targets. So they just go ahead and do what they want.
Well, I think the responsibility of giving targets to these agencies rests solely on the Office of the Budget Office of the Federation, and that they've been doing over the years. What we do, given our constitutional responsibility, is to see whether or not those targets given to the agencies are realistic. Now, I am coming from a background where I always want to see people being challenged in their workplace. Where you have an agency doing well in terms of revenue generation, I think the onus is on us to keep them on their toes, because the fact that they're doing well is not enough. There's always that room for improvement. And of course, each committee has a responsibility, the oversight responsibility over these agencies. Yes, like I said, it's a mutual responsibility between the executive and the legislative arm of government. And we will take this back home to ensure that each committee rises up to the occasion in terms of ensuring that the agencies do the right thing.
You know, one of the things I noticed sitting through your MTEF hearings is that some agencies came with discrepancies in their documents and were placed on status inquiry. What does this mean?
Well, a status inquiry gives you the opportunity to go deeper. What we're doing now is more on the surface. So if you're doing a status inquiry, we'll go deeper to look into their books, to look into their operations and see where there are gaps. I must hasten to state that we have not gotten the best of from the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, because the issues that we've had over time, over the last 2-3 days, has been solely in terms of reconciliation. Agencies will come claiming that they have made remittances to the Federation account and in some instances to CRF, but where you expect the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation to confirm such claims of remittances, they usually not there because they don't have the proper records to support the claims from this agency. So we've tasked them, and we're going to work. Fortunately, our committee oversights the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, so we're going deeper to look at their operations and see where there are gaps. And if need be, we make recommendations for government to invest more, because the country should have gone beyond where some of these operations will be reduced to manual processes.
I'm trying to understand the difference between the status inquiry, which you say gives you the mandate, a chance to go deeper into the books of these agencies, and what the committees that oversight these agencies do, because one recurring issue with regards to committee oversight over the years is that there have been concerns as to whether or not committees carry out the right oversight, because your committee members today said something about, especially with regards to spending of revenue, that this is something that they had complained about before, that they've been placed on a status inquiry, and it's still repeating itself at this point.
What I can say as far as that is concerned is that there is need for more synergy between the various committees of the House. Our interest as Committee of Finance is to look at their finances, to look at their responsibility in terms of revenue generation, and also their responsibility in terms of remittances to the accounts that they're supposed to remit to. But be that as it may, we've taken those things as feedback, and we're going to work in synergy with some of the committees of the House to ensure that we're on the same page. The privilege that we have as Committee of Finance is that we can look into the books of any of the agencies. We do not have limitation in terms of the agencies that we oversight. Any agency that has anything to do with money, we have responsibility to look into their books. And what you get by doing a status inquiry is that you have more time to look into their books. What we're doing now, you have just maybe possibly 1 hour to have conversation with this agency.
How much of a challenge is it for your committee, considering that some of the heads of the agencies did not show up for the hearings?
I don't know why heads of agencies will be shying away from having an interaction with the committees of the National Assembly. There are people that have become so notorious in doing that, and fortunately, we've written to some of them and we've gotten their responses. Central Bank, for instance, has been so notorious in terms of shying away from having engagement with the committees of the National Assembly. But they wrote to us in this instance to say that the officers that we're requesting to appear before us are not available now. But hopefully by next week, they'll be back and they're going to come up. So what we're doing now is to be able to reduce the burden in terms of our borrowing on the country. If we look inward, if we look deeper, you appreciate that these potentials are there. We only need to work together, baby. And what I mean now, we must appreciate the interdependence between the legislative arm and the executive arm.
In the course of your interaction with these ministries, departments, and agencies, beyond oil and agriculture, what other areas are you looking to push for revenue generation? And of course, beyond say the customs?
Well, the mining sector is really coming up, and we need to focus more on the mining sector. But even the agricultural sector that you did talk about, I don't think we've done enough in terms of harnessing the potentials of the agricultural sector. And the potentials are there. We only need to focus on what each of the sectors require, put them on ground, and you have what you expect from each of the sectors. And I think this government has done enough, in terms of granting interventions to the different sectors of the economy.
Just before we go, and comparing the parameters that you have before you now, and for the 2023 to 2025, and the parameters from last year, are we hoping to see an increase in some of the parameters that would determine how the budget will be funded?
Funding a budget with borrowing of about 11 trillion naira shouldn't be what we should be looking at this material time, because we have the potentials. And the Minister of Finance did say, when I made the comparative analysis between South Africa and Nigeria, she said something that what's it called, that it piques our conscience that something needs to be done differently. She said those economies are tax-based economy. And I said, why can't we make our economy tax-based? Tax is more sustainable than what we have today. We talk, the bulk of what we generate today comes from the oil sector. So if we look inward and embrace the tax economy, I think it's even more sustainable, and it's going to take us more quickly to where we want the country to get to.
Now, a member of the House of Representatives, Zechariah Nyampa, representing Michika Madagali Federal Constituency of Adamawa State, is drawing the attention of the federal government to a flooding disaster in his constituency and the security risk it poses. He states that many have been killed and displaced.
As I'm talking to you now, we have a lot of household displaced. The unfortunate thing recently is my people at the moment, they are so displaced, they are accommodated in the primary schools that we have around all the villages, and a lot of houses were destroyed by the flood, the instant flood that is currently ongoing in my area, and there's a lot of even death, because some houses collapsed because of the flood on even children. So we lost lives and property, and animals also, their rooms also got scattered. So our people are so displaced. They are sleeping at the moment as I'm talking to you. It's very unfortunate. Our people are sleeping outside under a tree. Some are sleeping in classrooms. And especially the men have sought to allow women, all the women and the children, to be sleeping inside a block of classrooms when the men are sleeping outside. Now the bridge leaking to so many places, the main highway, the Shua Bridge, the Orongaindi Bridge and the Gavel Bridge, currently they are inaccessible. And this also stands as a threat, even security threat, because our people use that only route to escape where there is attack. And you know, our people are just resuming from the suffering they went through during the insurgents. They are trying to rebuild their lives. I approached NEMA, I approached the humanitarian ministry, I wrote them, and the ecological office, and the Northeast Development Commission, the Federal Ministry of Works. I all wrote them letters. I complained. I laid the complaint about the suffering, the bad roads, the collapse of bridges in my constituents.
Well, that's the Gavel this week. Thanks for your time. Send feedback to the Gavel at channelstv.com. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.